This is an old kitchen. This is a scene of a kitchen, probably in Georgetown at her grandmother's kitchen. Because that looks like my grandfather over there. And for the longest time, I called the refrigerator an icebox because that's what they had, and that's what that little brown piece is over there. An icebox. You put the ice in the top, and it kept the food cool. Here's an old wash tub. I used to get a bath in the wash tub. My great-grandmother took care of me in Georgetown. This is the kitchen table. Looks like they're making something to make. That's a cake, I think, the layered cake. Over here, you can't see that well. There's a loaf of bread, and it looks like they're about to do some canning in mason jars. The stove is a coal stove, which is the first stove I remember. I got burned on it. The sink is the old farmhouse sink that you see now that's so popular. And it's got a lot of the kitchen bowls, and she made all those things. Grandpa sitting in the rocking chair with his pipe in his mouth.
And who would the child be?
The child, it could be her. It could be her. That could be her brother. That's probably she and her brother, her grandmother, and her father. It looks like her face. And she's telling him to stop doing something. She's got her hand up.
That was like with such detail.
Detail. Oh, yeah. A lot of detail. Lots of detail.
Did she craft her exhibits?
Did she what?
Draw them out, or she just created them?
She just created them. Although she could draw, but it was just in her head. The patience, though. The patience that it took to do this. And she could talk for hours about them. This diorama could be called the Georgetown kitchen. This was my great-grandmother's house. She lived at 22nd and N. I think I mentioned that before. And Georgetown, as we know, was one of the first areas to be gentrified. And my mother was so upset with my great-grandmother when she sold the house for little of nothing. But that was the most money my great-grandmother had ever had, and she thought that she was rich. So she sold the house, and she lived with her family after that. One member of the family after another.
Were they in Georgetown too?
Everybody was in Georgetown, but they all lived at her house. So after they grew up, after they became adults, they moved out of Georgetown, of course, left her. So when she sold the house, they had to move. She had to move with, whichever grandchild she could. She lived with us for a while. My mother was the oldest. She lived with the girls mainly. I don't think she ever lived with the boys. So.
About what year was it when she sold the house?
Oh my gosh, I was a baby. I mean, that had to be in the 50s. That was in the 50s. I didn't know anything about it, of course, until later. But I remember the Georgetown house very well. It was the first. My great-grandmother used to keep my brother and I during the week while my mother and father worked, and we would go home on the weekends. So that was home. Georgetown was home. With the parades and just the horses, and it was just fun. It was just fun. The fruit trucks and the iceman and the fruit man and everybody in the wagons with the horse-drawn carriage. It was nothing like it. Nothing like it. Right at the zoo. It was great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.